of mine at a recovery meeting, a 12-step recovery meeting. She approached me and she was like, oh, congratulations, you're not the hot mess you've been all these years I've known you. And maybe now you want to start looking at your friendships. And I was like, my whole body like trembled because number one, deep down I knew she was right. And instantly like my mind populated with the friendships that had sort of gone awry or I had dropped out of, or I had done worse things. And there was a longing there for friendship that had been so obscured by my romantic chaos. And I thought, oh my God. And I was also a little annoyed. I didn't know this woman well. Her name's Meredith, and she plays a huge part in this book and in my life. And I was a little bit like, how did you know? And she was kind of like, it's obvious. And also, but she said a very magical thing too, which is that it has been my experience. And she was just a few months ahead of me. She too had settled with a partner after some chaos. Her partner had the same name as mine. We both were attached to Jeff's. And I just thought, I felt the sort of glow of being chosen. Like she was inviting me she's like, let's work on our friendships together, which is different than saying, you need some help, here's my therapist's number. It felt like it was gonna be this grassroots thing. And a few years before, well, I don't know, I lost track of the time, but my therapist had said to me when I was crying about the next guy who dumped me, and he said, I think you have as much work to do in your relationships with women as you do with men. And I was like, how rude. How long do you think my lifespan is? And it turned out to be very, very true. Actually, if I had to say, I probably have more work to do in my relationships with women than I did with men, which still sort of like catches in my throat when I think about it. And I'm glad that Meredith came along and invited me, and I wanted to tell this story as a slight backstory. So Group was my first book, and it's all about the boys, and the men who acted like boys. and then there was me who was doing whatever. And you know, my therapist was male, and he's an authority figure, and he's this wild psychiatrist who was from the Ivy Leagues, not the one in town, but
we'll forgive you for that.
Yeah. No, you might not want to claim him. So I was feeling like, oh, and this story is so heavy on like, am I gonna get married? Which didn't feel like the most feminist thing I could put out into the world, of course. And one day I was doing a podcast interview with a woman from Singapore. We got into it like 2 minutes, like back and forth introductions. She was like, Christie, shame on you. And I was like, whoa, where are we going with this? And she was like, your book you were smart. You were doing all these things and all you cared about was getting a boyfriend. And I was like, I know, I was mentally ill. I consider that mental illness. That's why I went to therapy. And I told her in this interview, this was not totally true, but it turned out to be somewhat prophetic. I said, my next book is all about women. There's not gonna be a single man's name in it, not a boy, not a man, not a therapist. And it's going to be all about women and my relationships with them and what they've brought me. And it's not going to be about the men. And in early drafts of this, I did try not to have any names. My editor was like, no, you cannot have my third ex-boyfriend, my third, fourth, fifth, like my husband, my therapist. She was like, we need names. And so my intention was to honor my promise to the Singaporean podcaster. But this is how B.F.F came about, as intention, and also the story that I wanted to tell after Group.
I heard in an interview though that it actually started out as an exploration of jealousy.
Yes.
Is that right?
Oh God, there's been so many iterations of this book. So very, very early on, when I was like, oh, if I'm gonna write a book about friendship, I'm gonna call it the Jealousy Journal. And it was because I understood, I could only see a small slice when I thought about, oh, my friendship story is all about jealousy, which actually turned out to be envy. And it was explained to me, I think this is true, I looked it up on Psychology Today. Envy,
must be true.
I mean, it's the internet, it's true. Jealousy is if there's three people involved. So if someone's like getting up on your partner, you're like, I am jealous of this because he's mine or she's mine, whatever. And envy is if it's just a dyad and you want what somebody else has or whatever. And so envy is just like my constant companion. So original drafts of this was there's still a file somewhere in my computer, the jealousy journal. It was like, I was jealous of my sister at age 3. And then it just was like on and on and on. And there was like no arc. It was just like, it was like a story like this. And I had to back it up and find the bigger story. Envy is a huge part of my story. Actually, jealousy makes its appearance, but really it's envy. But the bigger story is scarcity thinking, inferiority, low self-esteem, all those things that were cropping up when I was dating. Turns out they impacted my friendships too, which seems like I should have known that way sooner than I did, but I'm glad I learned it, I guess, eventually.
Your first impression of Meredith, if I'm remembering correctly, was that you thought she was a kind and generous scarf-wearing witch.
Yes.
And I think about what I think of the pivotal silk scarf moment with Meredith. And I think about how I would have responded to that. And I don't know if I would have responded with as much openness as you did. Can you tell the audience about that moment?
Yeah, so I don't know if any of you guys are lucky enough to be in a 12-step program, but you go to these meetings and you see people, and in Chicago, there's a billion meetings, right? And so someone had suggested, I ended up in this meeting because I kept dating men who were alcoholic and was very confused about how to get them sober. And so people told me to go to these meetings for myself and to stop trying to get other people sober. So I go to these meetings, I meet Meredith, and she's like 20 years older than I am. So I didn't really see her as a friend. I was sort of in that zone. I was, first of all, very immature, if you can picture this. I thought, well, friends are people who look like you and are the same age as you and are doing what you're doing, and they too are secretaries and are trying to find their way as a 25-year-old. And Meredith had a career and like a hairdo and a lip color and a scarf. She would wear these scarves, and I was always like, I thought, she just looked like a very sweet real estate agent in Chicago. And nothing wrong, but I was like, that's not my friend. And then when we started seeing each other, like someone you just see for years in like a group you go to, and she approached me after I was sort of settled down, right before we talked about friendship. And I had gone to a meeting and I told the story. It was St. Patrick's Day. And I wore a green sweater, like so full of myself. Like I'm so ready to celebrate.
So festive.
I'm so festive. I have a Kelly green sweater, and you too can have recovery. And I was really, I was like in love is what was happening, and it was going well for the first time in my whole life. So I'm all about the holidays now. Whereas before I'd come in on Christmas Day, F this, F God, F y'all, like just angry young woman, and then angry older woman. And so then Meredith approached me, and this is not a person I think of as my friend, right? So I said that, and she approached me, she gives me a present, and it's wrapped, and I'm like, we're not present-y. What are you doing? Like, I just was like, you know that feeling when you've like misjudged a friendship? Like, should I have a present for her? Like, what's even, it's like, it's the 24th of March. What are we celebrating, And so I opened it up, and there's all these silk scarves in there for the holidays. Like there's a silk scarf with pumpkins on it, Easter eggs, shamrocks. And I'm like, thank you for the scarves. And she's like, well, last week you talked about you wanted to be a person who celebrates things, and you're always talking about my scarves. And I was like, I hope I've been kind about the scarf situation. And it was strange. And I felt like something was opening up inside of me. That, I don't know if you've had these moments where you're like, there's some kind of love and offering and friendship happening here that I have been unable to see. And it couldn't get any louder than 6 silk scarves. And I was like, I'm trying to picture myself at my law firm wearing this on Valentine's Day. But it was an offering that was very, very personal. And it was like that feeling of being seen, which is like fun and a little scary. And also like, can I rise up to what she's offering me and what she's suggesting that we do together? And it was a huge honor. And I felt also a sense of responsibility, like, don't screw this up. Like, she's a pillar in this community, and you just stopped crying 20 minutes ago. So
she's a very fancy lady.
Yeah. She probably has a 401k, like I have a Honda Civic. So It's one of those things, like, I hope now that I'm more Meredith's age, and I would be someone, I hope I could be someone else's Meredith, like recognize, take the time, slow down enough to make an offering like that. I hope I'm that person now.
That segues really well into my next question, but when I think of friendship, and some of my friends are out here today, thank you for being here and supporting me. I think of it being a certain ease to it, like that these are the people that I can be myself in front of, my flawed self, and they're going to accept me and embrace me anyway. So I was really struck by the notion that your friendship with Meredith was based on the work, and the idea that the work was never done. What was the work for you and Meredith?
Right, so I agree with you that before a true friend, right, there's that Emerson quote, before a true friend I may think aloud, something like that. Probably shouldn't quote Emerson at Princeton, but okay, something like that. And I agree with that. And for me, there's like a shadow side of that, which means if I'm that close to someone, we're intimate and we have intimacy. And whenever I'm involved in anything that's intimate, there's also lots of feelings, there's conflict, which I hate, and I never knew how to do any of that. Like, I would just leave. Like, if something's gonna get awkward, I just kind of like back out the door, or I just keep things real surface so that we're not gonna ever be thorny with each other. And some of that comes from, I'm a Cancer, I'm a middle child, I'm a daughter of an alcoholic. I grew up with my own addiction, so I'm used to keeping secrets and people pleasing. There's just a lot of layers before you can get to real Christie. And I would pick friends, including Meredith, who also had a lot of defenses and baggage, whatever you want to call it, sister issues, mother issues, father issues. And then we're gonna try to come together and do a lovely dance. Like, so much of friendship, for me, the narrative that would trip me up was it's supposed to feel good all the time. It's supposed to be supernatural. Like, if you're a girl, you have friends and you are rolling through life picking out outfits together. And I didn't have that ease and flow. So then it made me feel like I'm doing it wrong. I'm a faulty girl in some way. And by the way, these narratives are very analogous to the ones that trip me up romantically. This idea it's all supposed to be so easy, and that someone like me with my history is going to be able to do intimacy and have a good time doing it it's not possible without the work. Like, the work was looking at those defenses, looking at why I might run, becoming, like, doing the work of friendship with Meredith, being uncomfortable in front of her, telling her where I screwed up, telling her who I ghosted this time. That is the kind of work of peeling back the layers that was keeping me from greater intimacy. And it's harder than any other kind of work. I mean, it's as hard as any like professional work I've ever done. Filing a brief when I was a lawyer, doing discovery, that all's hard, and it's one kind of work, but this kind of work like gets right to the bone.
You were talking about your difficulty in forming friendships and relationships, and you write a lot about flawed relationships from your youth. And I gotta say, those chapters that took place in elementary school and middle school really resonated with me. You described the fourth grade in Texas playground game of, okay, you stand in the middle and we're gonna form a circle around you and we're gonna say all the things we don't like about you. That was played at slumber parties in New Jersey in 1983 as well, so it made its way to the East Coast. Also, your obsession with Queen Bee Brittany.
Yeah.
And like really seeking the sour apple Jolly Rancher of her approval, and begging your mom for the gold build-a-bead necklace. And I mean, for me, it was Queen Bee Melissa, and would I be given the privilege of sitting with her in the cafeteria at lunch, or would she make me the safety pin friendship bead that I could show off on my sneakers? Like. Why do you think that these, flawed, fleeting relationships from our adolescence and past resonate so deeply and have such a lasting impact decades later?
Ooh, that's such a good question. when I think back to my 5th grade self, I was at a new school. This is where I engaged in my most pernicious social climbing. And I got the ass kicking I deserved. And I think that when I think back to my 5th grade self, I was at a new school. I was really scared. I'd been in Catholic school, and this was my foray into public school. So I used to wear a uniform, and we all had the same like religion, and it was all homogeneous. And then I got flipped into this public school. So every insecurity was like absolutely highlighted inside of me. And I didn't have an internal compass to define success for myself. And maybe other 5th graders did, I did not. And I felt a lot of pressure in my household to be popular, because to be popular, which really means the people in power like you. And the people in power want you at their table, and they will give you a piece of candy, and that's how you are safe in the world. That's what safety is. That's what it means to be okay. And so I was just following a blueprint without questioning it. And it was very clear, I guess in some ways it was helpful, it was very clear who had the power. It was one girl, and her mother sent her to school with a bag of Jolly Ranchers every single day. There's nothing a kid wants more than candy. I had an eating disorder. I was gonna get that candy. And she would pass it out, and it was like a benediction. And I wanted it, and then we got crosswise. And one of the major blunders that I did learn then was, if you're going to set your sights on one person and you're going to ignore the other 10, 7, however many girls at the table, when you fall out with the queen bee, guess who does not have your back? The people you've been ignoring. And my mother had even warned me. My mother, it's like, now that I'm a mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, she saw this coming in September. And I didn't have my problem until I held on until February by the skin of my teeth. And I remember my mom saying to me when I was like, well, can Queen Bee come over for a slumber party or to spend the night? My mom's like, what about Allison or Adrian or April or Anna or blah, blah, blah. She named all these people. I'm like, no, they're not. What can they do for me is essentially what I think. I probably said it better than that. And my mom was like, I think you need to spread out a little bit. And I was too scared. And I was just fixated on the queen bee. And so why that still resonates today is, I always think about, I don't know anything about anthropology, but like, we're social creatures, the hierarchy is real. I can walk into a room and still like figure out who has the power, who's close to the authority figure in the room, where are the cliques. Like, that's just imprinted in me. Maybe because I'm a girl who went to middle school in Texas in 1983. It sounds like New Jersey had its own situation. Sure. So I think as social animals, maybe that's just sort of, there's probably an adaptive quality there. And I've had enough ass kickings and recovery not to social climb in that way, but to breathe and find my internal self. But it took me until my mid-40s. I'd walk into a law firm event. You can tell who's friends with Tina Chin, the White House, she's headed to the White House. Who's friends with her? How can I be friends with her? And so I think that sort of somewhere deep inside of me are a lot of misguided ideas about what safety is in a social situation. And so I still have to fight against that.
Do you find yourself bringing the baggage of those old relationships into your parenting? Because I know I do. You wrote an essay for the Washington Post about your daughter's best friend breaking up with her, right? So what advice could you give her that maybe you didn't have when you were that age?
Right. Well, I've not ever had the experience of my children taking my advice. However, a mother can dream. But when my daughter she did the same thing I did. And also, you probably shouldn't write about your kid's social life in the newspaper. Okay, I learned the lesson. So I was actually going to ask you about that, whether, yeah. Okay. It's not that I don't know that now, but I did not know that then. And again, an ass kicking. Okay, a really effective way to learn. But what happened was my daughter was in 2nd grade and she loved the queen bee, this girl who had a ton of social power. And my daughter was chasing her and chasing her and chasing her. I was saying the exact same thing my mom did. And I would say to her, what about Lily? What about Aiden? What about Arden? What about Braden? Like anybody, my daughter's like, nope, I want Mia. And I'm like, okay. And I can see because I can see Mia's moving faster than my daughter socially. It's just like, you can sort of tell. So my sister, oh, slip. Don't tell my therapist. Okay. My daughter got dumped. She got a note in her backpack. We're not friends anymore. And it was super harsh. And so I would start to sort of tell people about this, and there was one narrative. And the narrative was, the other girl is a mean girl and your daughter is a victim. And I was like, wait, this isn't serving my daughter. It's probably not serving Mia. My daughter was super clingy. Like they're not meant to be. Like I was searching for other narratives to help them both. Like, it's okay, she doesn't want to be friends with my daughter. It's okay. Everybody's okay. And I don't think this polarization and this idea, like, could the note have been nicer? Sure, yeah. But also, I don't know what my daughter did. I wasn't there. She can be a handful, a spirited handful, as they say. And I just think when parents who don't know the situation, I'm laying it out the best I can, as neutrally as I possibly can. And then they're just like, well, Mia's I'm like, well, no, she was trying to extricate herself. How do 8-year-olds know how to extricate themselves from a friendship they just wanted some space? I didn't know how to do it at 40. Yeah. And I want Mia to do that in a super kind way at 8. Like, right. I just think we can do better for our kids by just giving them, like, at least, if nothing else, a little more neutrality from me about what, like, I'm always have my kids' back, but that doesn't mean to have my daughter's back, I have to trash any other kid. Like, I mean, there may be a time and a place, but this was not the time or the place.
I also thought you so perfectly captured the intensity of middle school friendships, especially your friendship with Tara that ended when she moved away. And that really hit me because my best friend moved away midway through my 9th grade year, and her moving away inspired my first novel and the 5 novels that followed. But just I think that there's something really poignant about the fading of a once vivid friendship, and I feel like it's not depicted in pop culture as much as romantic breakups are, for example. Why do you think that is? And what are some of your favorite examples of female friendships in pop culture?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think that there's so much pressure that I hope is loosening up for girls and women to be on a romantic path, that we don't give friendship the gravitas that it actually have. I mean, those early friendship breakups were as vivid to me as anything.
You had a theme song, "The Search Is Over" by Survivor, which is a phenomenal power ballad, by the way. A fantastic
I
voice.
still cry when I hear it today.
I will refrain from singing it right now. But yeah, I mean, that's what it was described with the intensity of a romantic breakup.
Yeah, that's exactly how it, like, Tara this was after my ass kicking in social climbing in 5th grade. My parents were like, okay, public school doesn't work, as if that was the problem. But they transferred me to a different Catholic school, put on another uniform, and there I met Tara, and I loved her for all the right reasons. And I knew she loved me. So I was starting to, like, some of the gears of my friendship were working and well-oiled. And then she was moving. She actually came to the Petty school. Anyone? Okay. Okay. Anyway, she's just very smart. And I didn't know how to hold on to the friendship. But when she moved away, I was bereft. She was like the first love of my life. And I get so irritated. One of my favorite pop cultural depictions of friendship is Gail and Oprah. And what irritates me about it is whenever there's always someone, there's like a punchline, like, oh, they're gay, they're really gay. I'm so irritated by that. Can we not have a little room to love our friends ardently through the thick and the thin? Why do we have to only, anything that's like true love or passionate, we always shunt it into some kind of romantic sexual box? Like, it's not necessary. And if they are gay, then they're welcome to tell me and tell the public, but let's not do that to them. And when I was first working on this book, someone was like, oh, you should reread Sula by Toni Morrison. It's all about friendship. And I read that in high school and I loved it. And then I reread it and I was like, whoa. I don't know if y'all have read that recently. It's gorgeous. Of course it's gorgeous. It's Toni Morrison. And it's about a friendship and betrayal and trauma. And it's why aren't more people talking about this book is my first question. But I find it to be, I remember reading it in high school thinking, oh my God, friendship, someone else, some adult writer out there, Toni Morrison, and I didn't understand who Toni Morrison was culturally at the time, but it was enough that an adult had written a whole book about so many things, but the part that resonated for this high schooler was the deep friendship, betrayal, the returning to these relationships, and how a friendship can kind of live inside of you and guide you, whether it's going well or not, and that there could be two different experiences of friendship. It was so complex, it blew my mind, and I'm really glad I reread it, and I'm ready for someone to option that and make it a blockbuster.
Well, maybe they'll option your book and make it a blockbuster.
Okay, all right, a twofer.
I was really moved by the final section of the book after Meredith has died, and you're still writing letters to her. Is she still your go-to BFF?
Oh, wow. That's such a good question. She's still one of them. Like, one of the things that Meredith, when Meredith died, which is not totally a spoiler because in the beginning, I'm giving a eulogy for her, the very first pages. So she does die. And what I learned most profoundly with her passing, this is going to sound like I'm a terrible person, but I really understood that friends are not fungible. They're just not. Every person is so different. One of the things that was really important in my relationship with Meredith, there were two parts. Every morning we would tell each other what we'd eaten and the day before. Totally non-judgmental. Her food was crazy. I don't know how she kept standing. And mine is not perfect, believe me, I am not. Gwyneth Paltrow does not want to patent my diet, okay? And we didn't judge each other, we just sent it off. And we didn't comment on it. It was just a very safe place. And when I would travel, sometimes traveling would be super hard around my food stuff. And I would be texting her all day. I had a granola bar at O'Hare, blah, 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 and just panic text. And I knew she was receiving them. And so that was a wonderful thing. And that's when she died, I was like, oh my God, who am I going to tell my food to? And I experimented with other people and it's not the same. And I don't know why. Even though I tell them, don't comment, don't say a word about how many Kind bars I eat. It's none of your business. And also tell me I have all the, whatever. I can set it all up so it looks like Meredith. It does not feel like my relationship with Meredith. And that was something that was profound. And the other thing is, Meredith is the only person in my life who read everything I wrote. Kind of like you would, maybe for some people a mother would, I mean, not me, but I feel, and like she would read all the drafts and I would just send them to her without the expectation, like, come on, you don't have to read this. And she would be like, I loved what you did here or whatever. And I have lots of people in my life who I exchange work with, but there was just something special about, she was not a writer. And she was just kind of like a big sister, a mom, a friend, etc. And I've also given my work to lots of other people, but there was just something about the open door with her heart and mine that is not the same. So when you ask me, is she still one of your BFFs? Very weirdly, maybe because I wrote a book about her and I get to talk to her about people and other people know of her and write to me about her, it's kept her alive in this very vivid way. But I'm not super mystical, but I definitely, I have the pink rocks. She gave me a couple of pink quartz rocks that were in the shape of a heart. And I still have them, anytime I do anything hard, any scary Zoom meeting, I have the rocks, I have a candle, I have a picture of Meredith. She's very much alive and I lean into that. I'm not saying I see her, she visits me in my dreams. I hope I'm open to that. I certainly do hope I'm open to that. But how it feels now is we're still in relationship. We're still in relationship. I still hear her. I have friends who knew her. I have written about her. Now other people will have the gift of my interpretation of her words. And she feels very much as alive as a dead person can feel, which is, I'll take it.
Beautiful. You've said that you've positioned yourself outside of friendships, or that's one thing you said about yourself. But I mean, I've read both your books. You seem to have a lot of friends. I mean, and you have a lot of people who are drawn to you. That's what I've said, that whether you were receptive of them, they were drawn to you. Are I mean, look at the acknowledgements of your book. You have a lot of people that you're thanking. Do you still sometimes feel that way about yourself?
I do think that there's a deep groove inside of me that has an investment in an idea that I'm a part. Like I'm not quite, what I discovered now is in the groups that I'm invested in, I'm a long-term member, like my therapy group, which I've been there forever, or my writing groups that I've been in long-term, there I don't feel the apartness. But anytime I go into a new place, I practice the idea that, oh, I'm not quite right, I don't have enough education or enough gravitas as a writer. And the place where, what I discovered, I used to practice it in every area of my life. Any 12-step meeting, any group I would go into, I'd be like, oh, I'm the oldest, I'm the youngest, or I don't have this perk. Like I have this very great superpower to make myself less than. What I've discovered now is that I just put it in one area of my life, which is like, I would say that's progress. Like where I feel it the most now is at my kids' school. I sometimes feel like I can see myself doing it, like, oh, all these moms are good friends. Oh, they're all going, over spring break, they're all going to Mexico. I didn't get an invitation. I would be terrified to go if they asked me.
The playground can be a very dangerous place.
Yeah, school pickup is not for the faint of heart. Like they all have, like all of a sudden there's this group of moms in my son's class, and they're pretty tight. And I have relationships there, but I'm not part of a group, which already I'm like, I'm slipping through the cracks socially. And like all of a sudden after the pandemic, you start to see people again, right? And I went to pick up my son and my daughter. They're in middle school, 6th and 8th grade. And all of a sudden this group, they all have the same dog, like a golden doodle. It was from the same trainer in Michigan. And I'm like, of course, my first thought is, we need a dog. And, we're not dog people, so we're not getting a dog. But I still.
But it's almost like the impulse of like getting the gold added bead necklace, 100%, right?
100%. And then whenever we go to events, I very clearly and strongly in anything involved in my kids' school, I'm just like, there's a lot of doctors. I'm not a doctor. There's a lot of writers. Well, I'm not the right kind of writer. I don't do academic work on Nietzsche. I write about like bad relationships I've had. So that is where I am practicing it. And I think every time this subject comes up, I think to myself, there's a Meredith there. There are people, there's probably love rushing at me that I can't see because I'm too busy saying, well, I got my law degree at Loyola. I'm not from the University of Chicago. Like, that's what I'm doing. And every thought like that is pushing people away, is pushing me. I'm pushing myself out of whatever circles are available to me. And I would love to stop doing that, but the truth is I still do it.
You refer to Meredith as your BFF in the last letter, in the title is BFF. What does BFF mean to you?
Oh boy, that's such a good question. I feel like, well, first of all, I think BFF as the title of this book is somewhat tongue-in-cheek. I think the notion of best friend forever is real problematic. First of all, best, the energy that I bring to being the best girl, like the valedictorian of my law school, it's a scrambling energy, it's a hierarchical, it's a ladder that turns out to be not very conducive to long-term friendship. So best is problematic. Forever, also a problem, because even in the best of circumstances, people move away. It doesn't mean we're not friends, but relationships change and transition. And the idea, because I have very rudimentary ideas, like best means I'm the number one, and forever means it never changes. And that's like a straitjacket for a friendship, right? So not to mention the fact that I always thought everyone had BFFs and better BFFs, and they felt better. So it's very problematic. But now I think the idea is like, I want to reclaim BFF for myself, kind of like the queer community reclaimed queer from a slur to an identity. I don't know, that's probably a terrible analogy. Don't cancel me. I feel like BFF could be something softer that's the shape of a circle instead of a ladder. It could be like, Meredith is one of my closest intimates. Like, I've been calling my friends my intimates. I'm not sure how they feel about that. I'll call them later, but I do feel like best friend forever, if I reclaim it, means I have your back and you have my back, and really it's just for today. So it's completely the opposite of B.F.F, but it feels like I want to claim that it's been such a illusion for me. I want to step inside of it and work from within it. Like, instead of being like, that's not for me, how can I use it for my own purposes that would serve the friendships?
Do we need to open it up to questions yet, Janie, or?
I think we've got time for one more from you.
Okay, one more for, oh no, which one? I have so many things I want to say. You lead workshops on memoir writing. I write fiction because I like to be able to hide behind my imagination. I like to be able to say, okay, I'm starting out with the truth, but then I can start lying my butt off, because that's the beauty of fiction. And anybody who thinks that they're in my book, I'm like, no, it's all made up. All right. So what advice do you have for writers who maybe are nervous to write about the real life people who inhabit their personal stories?
Yeah, it's certainly very tricky, but the one thing that I really, really believe is that you deserve to write your story. Publishing is different than writing, but you deserve to write your story, whatever it is, whoever is in it, and then when it's time, if you want to put it out in the world, that is a different step. So separating those two steps has been the only way I can put anything out into the world. With B.F.F, I was trying really, really, really hard not to write about my sister, mostly because she asked me not to. However, I can't tell the story of my friendship without my relationship to my sister. I could not do it. It felt like, what are we doing here? I also felt and also my sister, we're not super close, and I'm not sure, I sent her the book with a note, and I haven't heard from her, so I don't know if I've destroyed I'm not sure what's happening there, in case you're wondering. And that has to be okay, because I do not believe I invaded her privacy. A lot of readers have asked me, like, where's your sister now? What's going on in that relationship? And I just say, I do not know. I don't have a bow on that one. And the part that gives me a little queasiness is I've read memoirs before where I'm like, wait, what happened there? Like something that was big in the beginning and then you don't hear about it. You're like, what happened there? And it feels like, oh, the memoirist is protecting someone, or there's something there. And I, in the past, have been very hard on memoirists about that. Like, I can remember talking about a specific book I will not name and thinking, well, if they weren't ready to write the memoir, they should have waited. And now that I've done that, there's a hole in this book. It's called my sister and my relationship. And I don't know when the resolution is coming. She doesn't want to be written about. I wrote about my experience of being a sister growing up, and then I don't talk about her present life. And if you're a reader wondering about that, I am too. So you are not alone. The other part that's hard is writing about recovery. There was this scene that I knew had to be in the book because it's pivotal to my understanding of myself, an identity forming moment, right? And it's my dad was in AA, and he is still, and he took us with him when he got a sobriety chip, like right? So he's taking me to an AA meeting, but if I tell that story, I'm an Al-Anon, I'm letting go of his anonymity. Like, that was hours of phone calls with people in Al-Anon, people in AA, and my therapist, and eventually my father. And those were like super hard. And I thought the book wasn't gonna happen because I didn't have the courage to have those conversations. So what I did was, conversations come later. First, write the scene. I hadn't even written the scene. I was like, I can't write this book. No, it's not gonna happen. And then I was like, well, maybe there's a way to do it. Maybe I'm wrong about what people want to see in the world about themselves. And at the end of the day, I got the biggest gift from this lawyer at Simon & Schuster. We had to go through like what I'd written and whether there were what kind of privacy concerns, right? So the lawyer calls you. And she calls me, and I was telling her, and she said to me, and I've never met this woman, but she gave me such a gift. She's like, you are allowed to write about what happened to you and what happened to your body and where people took you and what happened there. And I was like, I am? I was like, even an AA meeting? And she's like, you never said it was an AA meeting. And I was like, oh, that's true. Okay. Well, I told John now, but but you don't know my dad. And I am grateful for the other people. Also, I guess I don't really believe in advice, but if this is something coming up for you, find other writers who are doing the same thing. Like I had writers shoulder to shoulder with me who were all struggling with that. I'm lucky my books so far have not been about my children. That's hard. And I've had so many women tell me that they can't write their memoir until their mother dies. And I'm like, I get it. There's lots of stories I'm not telling on the same timeline. And I just think, how many stories are we not telling? Because we have to take care of or protect our parents. Are we even sure we're supposed to be doing that? I have that question for myself, and I can't answer that for anybody else, but definitely separate writing from publishing.
We didn't even get to group. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour to 6 hours about group. But when you first met your therapist, Dr. Rosen, you were 27 years old, and you told him, I want to be real with other people. I want to be a real person. Well, I've only known you for a little over an hour, and you've convinced me.
Thank you.
Are you convinced of that yourself?
I am. I think it's one of those things where when I said that, I knew what I meant. And now that I think I've achieved that, it just feels different. Some of these things, like being married, feels different than I thought it would, or being a mother to children feels different. So some way in which bridging the gap between fantasy and reality, that's where I've gotten stuck so much of my life. So I do think I'm a real person. I just sometimes wish that my realness was shinier or better or more easygoing, and it's not. So I'm the consolation is I'm real.
And you're funny.
Thank you.
This has been such a great conversation. It's really wonderful to start a Sunday morning with some laughs and some realness happening in this room. So I want to open it up to our audience for questions. I'll bring you a microphone. Raise your hand if you have one. Questions?
No questions?
Everybody being quiet. Oh, now, okay. There we go.
I've got pages here, people, so.
Well, I have the urge to do what my kindergarten through second graders do, tell my story, but I'm not going to do that. I want to ask. So you talked about B.F.F. I have to say a little bit, which is I resonate completely, and I'm very emotional right now because I guess I feel like I expect guys to break up with me and to ghost me and for it to not last forever. But I really thought my best friends were going to last forever. We made plans to grow old together on a commune, and it's like I felt even though we didn't get married, there was a commitment for forever. And now I'm just probably protecting myself, but I guess I want to know your take on this. Is I don't want that kind of BFF anymore, where there's, like, to your point, you said where there's not just all the eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
And that I can be close with, I want to get close with people and be real, but not have one single, like, just like, I'm still learning about the guy thing, but they're not going to be my whole world. Like, one friend can't be my whole life. So I don't know if there's a question in there, just like the kids do. Do you have any advice, or can you speak a little bit to, well, I guess what my real question is, but is it a spoiler alert? Is your friendship that ended and then is that what a spoiler alert is when you say something that's in the book?
Oh, I write about ghosting a friend and then we come back together after 10 years.
Yeah. So what is that like to heal that relationship?
It's so vulnerable to come back together. It's the most tender relationship I have because we know where the bodies are buried. You know what I mean? Like she knows me. We had a very intense, unhealthy relationship, and we had lots of fractures along the way. One of them, this may be familiar to you, one of them was we were single together and we were really sad about being single, and then boop, she found her person. And I'm still super sad and single. So that was tricky, right? Because I'm super envious of her and I'm jealous of her husband, right? So then I find my person, and then we're like, whew, we had like 10 minutes where we were on the same spot. And then I got pregnant while she was going through very intense IVF. So now I get this blessing out of nowhere, and she's going to the fertility clinic having the heartbreak of that. And I can't speak for her. I was so codependent. I was like, I don't want her to know I'm pregnant. I don't want to be happy about it. I want to wait till she's pregnant too. And then, so I would go to these ultrasounds and I find out the heartbeat of my baby and I'd be like ecstatic, overjoyed for this, just felt like a free blessing I got. And I wouldn't tell her about it. And then she feels like I'm withholding, but you know, this all could have been solved if we would have had conversations. It wouldn't even just been one, like, what kind of sharing is gonna work for us together? Instead, I was reading her mind, she's reading my mind, the bad feelings are building up. Then we both have little babies, which is awesome, but we're tired and we've just gone through 2 hard things and we had different ideas about how to meet each other's needs. And I was just like, I am out. I am out. I can't stand your sighing on the phone. I can't stand constantly disappointing you. I thought I was doing us a favor. She felt like I had abandoned her, like it was her husband, her son, and then me in her life. And I was just like, I'm gonna pull the cord before we kill each other, and without any discussion, which is not how I would handle that today. So now when we come back together, do you think that this woman trusts me? No, she shouldn't. She probably shouldn't. And we constantly bump up against the pain that we've caused each other. And so we're like inching forward together as we come back together. And one of my greatest hope in that friendship is I had a book release party in Chicago. She lives in Chicago. We're square. She knows about the book. She's been totally loving about it. And I told her the minute we reconnected, I was like, I think I have to write about, like, we're going to reconnect. You're going to be in my book. Oh my God. And she was like, I bless that. And I'm like, wonderful. And the night of my release in Chicago, I invited her to come to the party, all the things. And she kept not RSVPing. And I was sort of like, this is weird. Like, I don't want to pressure her, like, come to my party, but also like, what is this a thing now? And she wrote me the most loving text. And she was like, I can't find it was like Tuesday night. I can't find a babysitter. And I'm like, okay. And I'm feeling like, okay, I get it. She didn't have to tell me. She doesn't owe me an explanation. And then she kept going. And she said, the truth is, I have a lot of feelings about B.F.F. I have a ton of energy around it. I'm just not sure I want to come. And I was like, thank you. Like, that's the honesty we could not do in 2011 at all. And neither her nor I. And I felt like, oh, we have reset the break and we are walking, you know, maybe it's a little cattywampus, you know, there's some scar tissue there, but like we are inching forward, and that makes me feel so much hope. And I'm learning from her, like, what it can look like. I mean, she's given me so much grace. Like, I ghosted her and then I wrote about it. Like, that is generous. That's really a gift, and I'm so grateful.
Okay, are there other questions? Oh, yeah, right over here.
Can you talk a little bit about your writing process?
Sure. There's a lot of crying and online shopping involved in my writing process. Well, one of the things that I have implemented probably right around the time that I got serious about writing my first book was I think of myself as someone who can't go to the page alone, because I'm a group person. I grew up with group. And so before I start writing, I text somebody. I'm going into a Chilean mine or something, but I text someone, so I have a witness, right? Like, this is what I learned, like with my food. Don't do it alone. Text Meredith or Tim or somebody and tell them about your food. So I'm like, I should do this with writing. So before I ever do the mechanics, it's like I let somebody else know. So I'm like, I'm not alone. This is not actually a Chilean mine. I'm going to do some creativity and then I'm going to stop. And that's been super helpful. I also did The Artist's Way in the middle of the pandemic. If y'all know that, Julia Cameron, like super, I don't want to characterize it. It's been very helpful to me. And one of the things that she says has been helpful to her creative and the people that she teaches is doing 3 longhand pages every morning. And I've been doing that. I started that in August of 2020. So group was already out and I was sort of like, I bet it's going to be stressful to publish a book in the pandemic. Maybe I should put some scaffolding, some kind of spiritual foundation here that will like carry me through regardless of what happens with this book. And I really do believe, she also talks about going on artist date. I'm not so good about that. So now I'm like, if I go down to the kitchen and make myself a cup of coffee, is that an artist date? Maybe. But giving myself, like plugging into like the notion of like, she's got communities, like I'm not part of an artist way community, but I'm also in 4 writing groups. I really like groups, y'all. And they're all, one of them I actually haven't started yet, but they're all a little bit different. And I just feel like the more people who, I just feel like we're in like a pyramid. Sometimes I'm the base and sometimes I'm the flyer, and everybody's doing this hard work. Then I get most tripped up when I think I'm the only one. I'm the only one. I still get a rejection every 4 days on my essays. I'm like, somebody's, maybe in the introduction, like, she's an essayist. I'm like, I think I'm not an essayist anymore. I get so many rejections. And so that starts to play with my mind. Then I go to my writing group and I'm like, well, I haven't got an acceptance since November of 2023 or whatever. And everyone's, these beautiful writers that I get to write with are shaking their heads like, me too. And I'm like, really? And it helps me keep going. Like I only need to go for today. And then tomorrow I'll pick up some tools and do some more. And so I have more process around writing that's not actual writing than I do actual writing. And also just keeping the bar really low as far as time. Because I have the idea, I think I got this from Norman Mailer, which is that a good idea? that you, like for a writing day to count, it should be like 6 hours of writing. I've never in my life ever written for 6 hours. And thank God I heard Lauren Groff speak. If you guys know her work, she writes The Fate and the Furies, The Matrix. She ends up on Obama's favorite book list a lot. Anyway, I saw her speak and she said the most amazing thing, because she's prolific and beloved and an awesome writer. She's like, oh, I write 1 hour a day. And I'm like, 1 hour a day? She's like, yeah, I spend the rest of my writing time reading. So then now I have permission to read all day long, okay? So take note. And she's written these beautiful books, and she reads like 500 books a year. She's like famous. And I asked her about that. And she's like, well, some of them are books of poetry. You can read them in an hour. So I sort of like, now one of the things that helps me as a writer is like, where am I getting my inspiration? Is the inspiration I'm drawing really inspiring, or is it torture? And so I'm like, I'm on team Lauren Groff and not my imagination about Norman Mailer, which is really, really helping me. And I have a system where I have a paper calendar, because that's how techie I am. And any day that I spend 30 minutes writing or editing or any inside a document of my own, I circle it. And I'm like, that's my gold star. I probably should even get away from that, because it's like a little bit close to counting and dieting kind of thing. But it's like 30 minutes, 30 minutes. I get to call myself a writer if I do it for 30 minutes. Like this month has been very not righty because I'm on the road, but I still get to call myself a writer. Even if I take years off, I get to be, it's like claiming the identity. Kind of like I get to be a friend, even though I'm not a perfect friend. I get to be a B.F.F, even though I have never had a friend for forever. I think there's ways in which engaging with the narratives I'm drawing from is part of my writing. That's what I'm telling myself.
I actually just read one of your essays, and this might make a good final question. So I just read your essay in Scary Mommy, titled All My Friends Are Divorced and Having Great Sex. Can we look forward to a memoir about doing it in middle age next?
Well, I hope not to be divorced, although.
Not divorced, but just.
If you guys have divorced friends, so I run with this group, of course I run with a group of moms, and a few of them are divorced, and they have stories. Oh my God, we're like, wait, what? Like, I have to stop running and visualize this. Anyway, I do feel like now I'm almost 50, and I'm very focused on my body and my kids' my kids are teenagers. Like this, I'm not the first woman to be perimenopausal while our kids are like developing. It's not new, but I'm very interested in, and then I've got like my dad and my therapist both had health challenges. So their bodies are doing things that are scary. My body's doing all kinds of things, and my kids' bodies, and I have questions about that. And a lot of them come back to sex. And I keep thinking, like, if I'm not gonna have my sexual renaissance now, I've never had one. If I'm not gonna have it now, Like when? What am I waiting for? Like I'm already, my hips hurt. So let's just do it. Anyway, so I can't imagine what this book is gonna look like, but I'm sure you're tantalized.
I'm excited for it.
Okay, thank you so much, Megan, for your thoughtful and wonderful questions that kept the conversation going. And Christie, for your complete honesty and candor and humor. Just, you light up the room. So
Wait, can I say one more thing?
yes.
Okay, so I have a friend who's a novel, she's a YA novelist, Samira Ahmed.
Oh, yeah.
She lives 2 doors down from me. Okay, so she's big time and she's gone on a bunch of book tours. So she told me before I leave, she said, take one of your books and make it your own memory book and ask your audiences to sign it. So if you're rushing out to go to your thing, by all means, but if you can stop by, just sign your name. You don't have to do more than that, the date, your name, whatever. I would love for you to sign, this is my memory book so that when I'm back home, not writing, I can remember this glorious day in Princeton. So, and you can join the Portland crowd, New York City. Also, I want to say thank you to you and to all the people who set up the chairs and make this possible, all the labor that I did not see. It means a lot to me, so thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we can say goodbye to our internet audience. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. And if you want to watch this conversation again, of course, you can go now. It's going to be on the library's YouTube channel, YouTube/PrincetonPL. A lot of our author talks are recorded there for replay. Or if you can't make it one day, you can check there and see if we're going to be streaming it. So thank you.
It's there forever?